Hello everyone, it is Christine here, and you can probably tell from my voice, but I'm excited about the upcoming Roxy's Journal of Stitchery project, which is all about still life and drawing inspiration from still life paintings. And I have lots of ideas whirring around, but I think they're starting to solidify, and so I thought I would come on and share some of my ideas and my inspirations with you. I know some folks find it hard at the start of a project like this to know what you want to do, and I'd hate for someone not to be able to kind of take part. So I just think the more ideas that we can share out, the better. And my ideas are quite different to what Rachel and Sarah will be doing. So I thought, yeah, I'll jump on and share them, and then hopefully they might help you. You might want to borrow something from them. You might just take a little bit of information, and I'll also just let you know what I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks as part of the first prompt. So there are a few yummy things on the desk in front of me, but I thought I'd bring out my little creative folder, which I made in another, actually a two-part video. I'm just going to have a sip of my water because I think I've got so excited that my voice went dry. So I've made some notes about the Roxy Still Life project. I think originally we were going to have 2 weeks for the background and a week for the table. Oh no, and 2 weeks for the table, but now it's going to be 3 weeks total. But basically it's about creating a textile artwork or textile artworks. It can be individual canvases, so that's the approach I'm going to take. And so this first 3-week period is going to be about creating a background and table. Then there's going to apparently be a big prompt or a large prompt, which will be 4 weeks. And then I think these were the time frames that Sarah had given originally. I think now there's a spare week somewhere in there, so I'm assuming they will add the week in. But essentially then there will be a total of 5 prompts for things that will go on the table. There'll be some time for embellishing and some time for finalising and stretching if you're stretching it over a canvas. So I'm not planning to do one of these. I was originally thinking I would do a huge 1 metre sort of by 1 metre piece. I just think that's going to get super cumbersome on my desk. It's going to make it hard for me to work on it. So I've actually decided I'm going to do individual pieces for each of the 5 prompts. Possibly some of them might get combined together if they're of a scale and a style that goes together. And for this first one, the background and the table, I'm actually going to work on recreating a particular painting that I just absolutely adore in micro mosaic fabric collage, which is a bit of my own style. I haven't seen anyone else kind of working at the scale that I work at. The best example I've sort of got in the existing piece that I'd completed was this little micro mosaic snail. And if you can see just the tiny little triangles used for that. So they're sort of, smaller than a fingernail piece. So they are definitely micro mosaic. And so that's going to be my first piece. But then I'll be able to explore different styles and also different layouts. One of the things I've been doing, or actually before I leave here, let me also explain one of the reasons that I want to do individual pieces and not spend the time creating a background up front for the pieces is something that the Collage Quilter, who's got a channel on YouTube, she talks about how she always does the background after the fact, because otherwise the background can sort of dictate what you then do in the foreground, which kind of made sense to me. So I'm thinking I will actually work on these using a method that if I'm doing a sort of a collage, I'll work on them using a method that the Collage Quilter does, but we can come back to that when we actually get to that point. So I'll move this off to the side now. And so, yeah, the person I was just mentioning there is called the Collage Quilter. Emily Taylor, and I got her book for Christmas. And I just think it's going to provide some really wonderful inspiration once we get on to the actual prompts of what might be sitting on the table. And I just love, it's beautifully set out book, really visual, and it's quite instructional. So it's really sharing Emily's, I guess, theory. So her colour theory, and then it's got pages on that. I won't show you the detail because obviously it's her book, but you can do book reviews on YouTube, so consider this a little mini book review. And so I just love this sort of work, and I could definitely see myself doing something like this. These remind me of those chinoiserie vases or pots, and just, yeah, I just think it's incredibly beautiful, and it's a form of collage, fabric collage. It's at a bit more of an upper scale than what I do in my micro mosaic, but I just think that is absolutely beautiful. This one as well, just love the pot. Beautiful orange tree, so yeah, that could even be a standalone piece. And so my other thinking as well is that by doing these as individual pieces, I can vary the size of them, and I'm not going to try and keep a uniform size across my piece. Also, if I was going to be doing something at this size, then I would need a massive canvas to be putting it on, because if you think about a table, this yeah, is almost sort of, I guess, at almost sort of real size, because pansies are about that actual size. Whereas if I'm doing these as individual little still lifes, it allows me to do the still lifes, each of the individual pieces at different sizes, and also with different perspectives on them, which we'll come to when we have a look at this still life book. So I've marked a few of the pages I particularly wanted to look at, but yeah, so much eye candy in here. So yeah, it talks about all different things, about colour temperature, about contrast, beautiful vegetables. It talks about the supplies that she uses, all sorts of things. I've got myself one of these little irons as well, one that fits with the Australian plugs, because the Clover ones are I think they're a Euro plug that they come with. And so yeah, just beautiful. This one's done in an edge to edge collage style, but I've been watching Emily for a while, but I haven't done any of her sort of projects or really applied her sort of style, so I'm really excited to do that through at least some of the projects as part of this. And then yeah, it talks you through the process of preparing the design and doing it, and selecting fabrics, etc., and finishing it. And then I just love these. I'm hoping we get a teapot and teacup, or teacups. So again, and I could see myself doing a few of these, and so I love the fact that, yeah, I might be able to kind of, yeah, even make some little like pieces to go on the wall, but also make some little pieces that could go on a pouch or on a card, or pieces that I could gift away. Isn't that just beautiful? So I'm definitely, even if we don't do teacups and tea sets as part of this Roxy project, I'm definitely going to do some of these because I just think they're beautiful. So yeah, and then there's just various other projects and designs, etc. In the book. The sun's just come out, so hopefully it's not going to be too much of a trouble for you. And so the other book that I wanted to show you is this Still Life Techniques and Tutorials for the Complete Beginner. And so I got this again for Christmas because I just wanted to kind of study some of the, I guess, the underlying techniques. Let me just quickly close my curtains so that you aren't getting the sun in your eyes. Because I don't want glare off the pages. So just this image on the front, I could definitely see myself, yeah, doing that in fabric and fabric collage. this one in here. I just think it's a beautiful scene. And so the other thing I love about doing individual pictures, individual pieces, textile art pieces, is that I'll be able to explore doing different angles looking at it. So this one you're sort of looking across at the plate. This one you're looking down at the plate, and again this is softer, and but I just like the idea that you might be able to incorporate something like a piece of vintage tablecloth linen as your base, and then you'd be able to do the work on top of it. And just imagine the fun of trying to, in fabric, create all of these elements. So I think there's lots of fun to be had. Again, I have just bookmarked some of the pages. There's lots about sort of picking out paints and things, which I guess we won't necessarily need unless we're going to paint a still life first and then stitch into it, which I could possibly do. I don't think I'm that artistic, so but we shall see. And so yeah, it talks about tone, which is useful, about colour, and so again colour wheels, composition, which I think is really helpful, focal point, cropping, and then this is what I was talking about, the viewpoint and perspective. So looking down on it, looking sort of across and being even further down below, and then the rule of thirds, which is really useful. But yeah, even just thinking about the cropping, what do you want to show in your image and where? So I think that's just all really, really helpful info. And then there's some setting up like little lay flats like this shell one, but we won't have a look at that, through to these oranges in coloured pencil, the original design that it was, or the original object that it was copied off, and then it sort of steps through how to create it. So I mean, who knows, I might have a go at trying to apply some of the drawing techniques. Otherwise I could always take a tracing and kind of then start applying fabric if I'm doing a fabric collage. Toys on a shelf, but again we'll just jump through a bit further on where I've got another page. Yeah, so this is the tea and cake in mixed media. At first I thought, oh, maybe it's got fabric, but no, it was actually about watercolour pencils and coloured pencils. But I just think that little scene is so sweet, and there's the original scene that it was based on. So as you can see in the picture, they've gone even higher up than where they've actually taken this photo here. But again, showing how they've actually created the design. But yeah, what fun would it be to actually use a vintage linen as the base, and even some vintage little napkins. And then there's various bits about art supplies, and there's another one with sort of garden, but it's a bit more abstract, less the style I'm after. I liked this one because it was watch and keys in mixed media, but again I loved how they had created the doily type effect. So that's the original image down there, but then just in drawing. So I thought that's really, really interesting. And again, stepping through the process of how to create it. And so yeah, got a glossary, and again it's just a nice little book, and I don't think it was particularly expensive either, by Susie Johns, and the ISBN is 9781784946173, and the Collage Quilter one is 97817379750 and then 07. Just love these. So that's two of the books that I am taking inspiration from. And then for this first prompt, which is all about background and table, as I mentioned, I'm going to do a single piece that has background and table, and I've selected this gorgeous image by a French artist. I've got a little write-up that I've written myself so that I can talk you through it. His name is Henri Le Sidaner, and he was born in 1862 and lived to 1939. So that's his name. And so he was known as a intimist painter, which had elements of Impressionism. So if you think of sort of Monet and others of that era, really where they're putting putting paint on and not particularly blending it. You can really see that in here. But the thing that makes it the intimist, part of the intimist art movement, even though I don't think his time period was exactly that, is the fact that it's these really intimate scenes where it's almost as though someone has just walked away from the table, but it's got that sense of people within it. The French art critic Camille Morclair wrote about intimism and defined it as a revelation of the soul through the things painted, the magnetic suggestion of what lies behind them through the description of the outer appearance, the intimate meaning of the spectacles of life. So isn't that lovely? The spectacles of life, and it's that sense of the suggestion of what lies behind it. So really, why has this table been kind of left? Where have the occupants of the table gone? And it's really interesting because Henri Le Sidaner really focused on this particular style of tables. Let me just show you some of the other art that Henri did. So, and most of it was actually of this particular style was based in his own home that he had, and the amazing gardens that he actually built. So he bought essentially an abandoned ruins of a medieval fortress in a place called Gerberoy, Gerberoy, in 1904. And he set out to basically create magnificent gardens of the sort of scale and style of, well, not the style, not the water gardens, but really of the, I guess, beauty of Monet's gardens. And so these paintings that he's created are within his grounds, looking back at his house, and with the beautiful gardens featuring really strongly. So yeah, let me show you some of these. So this one is known as the table in the white garden, and you can see really subdued colours, and that was another thing that really defined Henri Le Sidaner's style. He used very quite subdued tones, although he did apparently get brighter as he went along. But he used, dappled brush strokes to create atmosphere and mysticism. So yeah, that's a quite subdued one. Here you can see one of his brighter ones. Looks like it's at a seaside. Oh, yep. So it's at La Table de la Mer, so the table by the sea, Villefranche-sur-Mer. So that's, I think, as you head round towards Nice. I think it's just a bit back from Nice. On that sort of, that coast. But isn't that lovely looking through the doors? So I'm hoping if you did want to go down this sort of micro collage path, or if you want to kind of create a painting in another way, hopefully some of these images might inspire you. And the good thing is they are public domain. So the image I'm going to be using for my piece is public domain and available through Wiki Commons to download at a high resolution. And yeah, this one's public domain as well. I think all of his works that are on here are public domain. This one is just glorious. I could have happily picked this one out as well. Just love this courtyard. It's quite light. The reason I went with the one that I've picked is just it's got the richness of really autumnal tones in it. But just so much scope to, I think, do micro mosaic fabric collage, where the fabric is going to conjure up each of the brush strokes that you can see in here. And the fascinating thing once you start really looking at this is just seeing how many colours make up the scene. And so I think this whole process of doing the micro collage, and because I've already started my little tester piece, I know this, is it's really giving me an appreciation of how the artist has actually applied and created the piece. So again, this would just be so lovely. And I'm not going to worry about what's on the table in this piece. This is just going to be a standalone piece that I work on for this first 3-week period. If it takes me a bit longer, that is fine as well, but I do have a plan. There's this piece, which is Le Déjeuner. So I think is that because le petit déjeuner is breakfast, so I think that's lunch. I think this is lunch, and I think you can see beautiful peaches in the bowls. And again, it's got sort of the material draped over. That was also, I think it was in this one, yep, material draped over. So I just think that there's so much scope for what you can actually do with that as well. I love the colours around here, the vines, but again, just that part of his house featuring with those beautiful French shutter windows. It really does conjure up France for me. This beautiful one, like looking out on the countryside. I would have loved to do this one as well. Who knows? I might come back if I love doing the micro mosaic collaging. I might come back and do a little series of on Henri Le Sidaner, micro collages. And this is the one that I've selected, which is Le Table d'automne. I'm probably mangling the French language. I probably say it with an Italian, I don't know. Italian has been the thing that I've spoken most in Europe, so I did learn French at school, but I found my Italian sort of accent has overridden the French. So I think even when I print it out, you'll see it's even more rich in tones than you can probably see on the iPad screen. But again, just love the fabric, love these little flowers down here, the teacups, the glass, the 2 bottles, and the teapot. And then this is a smaller little scene, quite subdued colours in that. That's a little countryside scene, so less still life, so we'll just jump through and see if there's any other still lifes, but at least you get to sort of see a bit more of the scenery. And so that's it, yeah. So I think we're back to, yep, so that's the Gerberoy where he was, where he purchased his house. Oh, and then that must be a portrait by Marie Durham. So that's what Henri looked like. And so these are some pictures actually of, I think, coming down to where his house is. And apparently you can actually visit there. So if anyone is in France or planning a trip, look up Gerberoy. I know I certainly will on the next time I get the opportunity to return to France. And so these are some of the beautiful gardens that you can tour. Just beautiful. Look at those gardens. So you can see, it was created in the ruins of a medieval fortress. So he's really taken advantage of all the levels and the ruins as part of the garden design. Isn't that beautiful? And so that would have been an earlier photo by the colours of it. So I just love that, this painting that I'm going to be recreating in fabric is sort of, based in a place. And there is the photo of the young Henri Le Sidaner. And then these are some other figures. Apparently in his later painting, he really stopped painting so much the figures and more moved into painting these scenes that I'm... So I think he did some, more. But again, here's that scene of the abandoned table that just makes you wonder, where have the people gone? And I think that's it. Yep. So we're back to the first picture. So that is. Do I have anything else I wanted to tell you about Henri? Yep. So the particular sort of his motif for his design that he kind of did many times over was the recently vacated tables dappled in sunlight and overhung by trees or bushes. And so he is seen as a unique artist who doesn't easily fit into an art movement, even though they do say he is an intimist painter. But really those quite impressionistic brush strokes, which I just think are going to work so well for micro fabric collaging. So what I have here in front of me is the start of my piece. So what I've used is a nice, it's a calico, but it's actually got a really nice weave to it. It's beautiful to stitch through. It's an off-white, but that doesn't matter because it is going to be, covered. I'm not sure whether this piece will end up being put onto a canvas or whether I'll just back it onto some card, and then I think maybe put it in a box frame. I think I'm going to want to be able to touch it, because part of the thing of doing a micro collage is you actually get something that is super tactile. And I'll show you that in a moment, because I have started doing a little test piece. I had a printout on my fabric that didn't come through fully, and so, well, it actually just slightly cropped it down, so I then did a fresh print, but I've got therefore a piece of fabric that I've been experimenting on. So I will show you that in a moment. And so I've, so first up, I have printed, first of all, this image. I've downloaded it off Wikimedia, off the Wiki Commons at the highest resolution that was possible. So you can select the resolution that you want. And then using my printer program, I've printed it out onto this inkjet printable fabric A4 Matilda Zone. That's what I use in Australia. But yeah, you can use whatever one you like. I like that it is a really beautiful sort of, I guess, soft. It feels lovely. So this is a piece just printed straight off the printer. This is a piece I've started stitching on, so I'll keep you in suspense a bit longer. But yeah, it's beautiful, and it's really easy to put the needle through, and you just get a really glorious print. I even like that this is just printed on paper. It's just come out, I think, even richer than just being printed on the paper. With this one, for some reason, it did bleed a bit at the corners, which it didn't do on this one. I think, yeah, possibly, yeah, I just selected the slightly wrong size for it when I was positioning it in the page frame. And so with this one, I actually left a little bit of a margin around it, just so that I knew for sure that it was going to print the full dimensions, because as you can see on this one, it had chopped that down. So I only got the top rung, and I didn't get all of the fabric coming down. So I printed it onto the inkjet printable fabric. And with that, it comes with a piece of plastic on the back of it, which you just peel off, and then you do have your fabric consistency to work with. What I then did was got my piece of calico. I gave it an iron, even though it looks like it's kind of crinkly around the outside again. And then I used a bit of my Yoo-hoo glue and just put a bit of that around it and stuck it down onto the calico, and then I proceeded to go around it and put stitches in place. Lots of threads on my desk, stitches in place all the way around that. Down there's a pale blue stitch. Not that we're going to be able to see, I just didn't want to have black stitches kind of making me a bit confused when I came to do my fabric collage. So this is going to be my base. It's all going to end up being covered with fabric. It's really kind of like a paint by numbers. In the Collage Quilter, she talks about working with sort of grayscale images like that you then put your different intensity colour pieces into, sort of from dark through to lighter pieces. This is kind of like that, but it's also letting me know the colours, and that's going to be particularly helpful just because of how much colour variation there actually is in this piece. So let me now show you, and I might bring you down even further so you can really see. Sorry, I won't bring you down maybe quite so far. Let's just move this over for a smidgeroo. So this is the piece that I've already started working on, and I've just worked, just before I came on the video, I've just worked in this little area up here to create this area up here. Sorry, I'll bring you down a smidgeroo more. So you can see it there. As I mentioned, yeah, this piece is slightly smaller because I just shrunk it in so that it wouldn't be cropping off part of the image. And so what I've done is mainly worked in these little, I was kind of cutting out little teardrop shapes, because I was looking at what shapes are the little paintbrush shapes, and they're almost little ovals or little sort of, sometimes they've got a little pointy end. So I was kind of modeling on that, but just have a look how many colours are in a section like that. You've got brown, you've got a bluey purple, you've got a greeny blue, You've got a quite intense blue, a darker navy blue, pale green, a darker green, yellowy orangey green, a yellow green, a white, quite purple. It's amazing how many pieces, and I think even in something like this I probably would have used about probably 20 different pieces of, maybe 15 pieces of fabric to just do that. I was lucky with some of the fabrics, like the windows. I cut them out as little rectangles or little squares because I had a fabric that was just perfect for it. It was great that I had just recently, and I'll link to this video, I had sorted all of my fabrics. Let me just see if I can show you. I'll have to bring you up for a moment. Let me just bring you up. I had sorted all of my fabrics into these, my small fabrics, like my fabric scraps essentially, onto these little cards with a clip up the top, so that I can easily look through my fabric scraps and select what I want. And in this case, I wanted something of about this colour with a bluey colour pattern in it, so that I wouldn't have to overlay multiple fabrics. And so I was able to just find this fabric in here, take a little snip of it off with the scissors off the bottom. I didn't even have to unclip it, and then it goes back into this magazine folio, which used to keep, I think I used to have crafty magazines in them, but I've been cleaning out my bookshelves, and I had these little folios left over, and they fit perfectly in there. And it's just such a great way to keep all of these organised. They're on the desk, on the shelves next to me, and I can really easily and readily grab out my scraps, which is super, super helpful. And so the windows were done from that particular fabric. So let me bring you down again, and we'll come across here. And so yeah, mainly those little teardroppy shapes, and then just taking some bits of fabric. With these, I even kept them just cutting smaller pieces. First I had long pieces, but I want them to still have that sense of being brush strokes, so I don't want to do long sections for them. And again, with the windows, if I hadn't have got lucky and found that fabric that actually already had the variation of the dark and the lighter sort of bluey colours in it, I would have done that with bits of fabric. But yeah, even looking at a white wall, just look at all the different colours that you can actually see in that. So I absolutely love it. And I love the fact that I'm going to be able to experiment with different types of fabrics. And I'm thinking even I might play around a bit with laces, for example. Maybe when I'm coming to do these little flowers, if I want them to sort of sit forward a bit more in the design. I'm also wondering if I wanted to create a really muted look to it, I could actually overlay some of this beautiful fine bridal tulle. I think this is what I got from Silk and Stitch. That's a possibility that I can overlay that as well. And I'm also thinking, I'm just having a look if I can see it. It was on my desk, but I'm not sure where it's gone. I've got some beautiful purpley mauvey tulle that had beaded pieces on it, and I'm thinking that potentially I can use some of that when I come to do these areas which have that sort of purpley tone to it. I can't see it within easy reach right now. I'm just looking over here in case it's straight over here. No, not sure where it's hiding at this very moment, but that's another thought. So I haven't decided if I would go the tulle. I kind of like this, and again, I like that it is really tactile. It would still be tactile even with the tulle, and the tulle would give it that more muted and almost like it is, yeah, it's kind of even more shrouded, even more, got that sense of peacefulness and calm. So yeah, that's a possibility. I've got much bigger pieces of the tulle. So I think that's probably enough of my rambling about ideas, but I did just want to kind of give you all those different ideas. The idea that you don't have to do one massive piece, particularly if you're not wanting to struggle with something sort of a metre by a metre on your table or in front of you. I feel like I'm about to sneeze, so excuse me for a moment. Now it's gone away because I mentioned it. And yeah, so don't feel you have to do a big single piece. If you want to kind of do a bit more experimenting like I'm wanting to do, you can do some smaller pieces. And perhaps if you want to do for this first one, pick out a scene that does actually have a table and a background, and you can work on that for this first 3-week period. And if you're interested in using your scraps and having a go at doing some micro collaging, I'll be doing it step by step and sharing with you each of the steps in the way. So I think what I'll do for that is my next video that I do in this series will be picking out the fabrics and starting to put some fabrics down, and then I think the one after that will be maybe putting some more fabrics down and some stitching in, and then I think we'll just move around and do different parts of the garden. But I was thinking in terms of what I would want to do in this sort of 3-week period. If we think of this image, and let me just bring you up a tiny bit so we're in full scope of the image. If this is our image, which it is, I think I'd probably focus in this first week period on the top, almost a third. Then in the second week period, I'd focus on the sort of the mid-ground. And then in the third week, I'd focus on the table. And as I say, I'm not going to wait for the prompts unless I want to. I mean, I could always just do a table plain and then come in and put the prompts that they give us in this piece as well. But I actually think I just want to create the scene that Henri painted, because I just think it's so beautifully balanced, and I just know this is going to be something that I love looking at on my wall. And I think sometimes you just have to do what brings you pleasure. Oh, and there was one thing I haven't shown you. So yeah, we'll be stepping through the process of the collaging and the stitching of it. And I will be showing you, that. I'll be talking about selection of thread, because I'm going to do it so it does have little sort of just ever so slightly visible stitches. So I'm still playing around. I tried with a sort of a whitey coloured silk thread. I've used a pale blue, and I was even toying with the idea of using like a fine gold metallic. I used a metallic on my little snail, and I wouldn't use this sort of colourful metallic, and this was a bit thicker, but I'm just wondering how something in a metallic might work. I think it might be a bit too much, so it probably won't make it through, but I will have a little bit of a play with that before we get to the stitching stage. And so the other thing I wanted to show you, and this was another thing that made me think about I may want to like go down the path of doing individual pieces, is I've got some lovely panels that might end up being quite suitable for some of the prompts. Now I'm going to have to go right up. This is going to be large scale after just talking about not doing large scale. This is a beautiful piece of fabric. I've actually got a larger section, but it's got one whole bit in it. And I've discovered that this particular fabric is actually in the Victoria and Albert Museum. So when I saw it online, it was just on a vintage fabric seller on Instagram, I think, and very reasonable prices. But yeah, this particular design is in the Victoria and Albert Museum, which is super interesting. So it's called Tulip Bowl, and it was made in 1989, I think, printed. And so yeah, it's got tulips and then a beautiful blue pot or bowl. Isn't it gorgeous? So I was thinking if we got a prompt of something like a pot plant or a vase of flowers, wouldn't it be lovely to probably do thread painting into it, or possibly do the sort of the fleur wood style of painting it. I'm not sure, or I might just keep it and actually frame up this piece of fabric. But yeah, I do think if you add your own stitching to it, and even doing like seed stitching into the background of it, and possibly putting it on a piece of wadding or something, so it does get some real texture and depth to it. So that was another piece that just inspired me to keep my options open, because obviously if I wanted to do something at this size, I could not do that on a canvas, because it would be sort of totally out of whack with the other elements on the still life. So I think that's enough from me. I'm going to continue playing on my test one, and then I'll get ready to do the next videos, talking about selecting fabrics, and then talking about starting to cut and lay down the pieces. And don't worry, we're not going to be using pins. I'm going to be using my trusty Yoo-hoo glue, and then we're going to be putting stitches in. And you can see once you get the stitches in, which this one has, it's super robust. Even though they're tiny little micro mosaic pieces, it is just super robust. And what I love is when you're looking at it from the distance, I hope the camera's kind of giving you the sense of this, it all actually starts to look really painterly. So I just think it's going to work super, super well. I'm excited. I hope you're excited either to maybe give this a go or to follow along and see my adventures. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I will speak to you soon because I just can't wait to get started. Bye everyone.